Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So if you can please each introduce yourself. Abby, want to start?
Hi, I'm Evie Kelly, and I'm the Midwest Director of Sales at Crackle Plus in Chicago.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael O'Neill. I'm the Director of Programmatic Sales at Scripps.
Hola. I'm Damian Pelliccioni. I'm the CEO and one of 4 fabulous co-founders of Reverie. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And I want to wish everyone a happy National Coming Out Day today.
Yay.
Great. So now that the CTV world is cluttered, can each of you let us know how you get discovered and how that impacts your bottom line?
Do you want me to go first?
Anyone can go first, but if you want, yeah,
Sure,
go ahead.
I'll go first. Well, at Crackle, it really is about discoverability, and we do that in several different ways. The first one is through our different touch points, and we have, right now, I think over 70 different touch points with device partnerships, with content partnerships, and then also with partnerships with OEMs, the LGs, the Samsungs, the Vizios. So that's number one. And then number two is we've also done a lot of marketing about those OEM partnerships. And last year, we were actually on Vizio's boxes. So when you bought a new TV at a Best Buy, for example, we were branded on those boxes with a profile of our original content right on that box, and then our icon was at the bottom in a really prominent place. And it's a nice big orange icon, so it really stuck out. We're also on millions of Vizio remotes with a button as well, with, again, that nice orange button. And then the other way is through doing a lot of marketing of our original content. And that's something that Crackle is really well known for, and that goes back to kind of our genesis when we started out with comedians in cars getting coffee. And so we continue to put out 1 to 2 originals per month, and we do a lot of marketing cross-platform and across all of our different partnerships to engage viewers in that.
Yeah, and just from a channel publisher perspective, a couple of acronyms that everyone should learn is FAST. You probably heard this. Free ad-supported streaming TV. It's very Hollywood. It's very in kind of the OTT land. There's OTT, there's CTV, there's AVOD, there's TVOD, there's SVOD, there's IPTV linear, and there's FAST. But essentially, these are live linear channels living in HLS streams that go into the manufacturers, the OEMs. And what we're doing with Reverie is it's very much like publishing. The OEMs have editorial staffs that will come to us and say, what do you have for National Coming Out Day? Today we launch our big award show. It's like our VMA show, Queer X Awards, with like 50 different influencers and celebrities like Sam Smith and Kim Petras will be appearing. And in those moments, we get to kind of own that space, especially if it's relating to our community. And then, of course, they're looking for moments like Halloween and Christmas. And so we'll bubble up content, either original or licensed, from our library to get featured in those hero units or those email blasts because they're publishing the same way that you guys are. And I think it's really interesting because when we do, we see a natural organic lift in our viewership in those moments. But at the same time, we're blending a paid spend. And I will say that the space is already oversaturated, and it's going to be really tough to get into. And you'll probably have to partner with somebody like a Reverie that already has a channel that's expressing, an intent to a certain segment of audience, which is we own LGBTQ across all FAST and AVOD and have kind of an MFN for that. So it's going to be tough because the channels are oversaturated. The electronic program guides have over 200 to 300 channels. Depending on the aggregator. Pluto, I think, is almost up to like 400 channels now. And they're not necessarily looking for more unless you have legacy content that is really going to drive intent for viewers to get sticky and stay. Because in a free-to-consumer environment, the churn happens instantaneously. It's not like subscription. They're flipping through those channels like crazy.
Yeah, that's... the FAST piece is very important to Scripps. So Scripps has legacy content in that we have a large over-the-air portfolio, Court TV, Bounce TV, Newsy, Ion TV, which is your Law and Orders and procedural dramas like NCIS, et cetera. And our CTV portfolio complements that over-the-air portfolio. So when we do work with the FAST partners like Pluto or Philo, et cetera, or working with the OEMs like Samsung or Vizio, we're in lockstep in terms of how we approach those folks. It's really about relationships. And being discovered is really about placement and promo, using your own promotional opportunities to cross-promote from channel to channel is very important these days. We all know there's a prolific rise in eyeballs in the CTV space, and Scripps is really keen to grow that and be a part of that. And so ultimately, it's about delivering, as we talked about, content and really strong content that folks can resonate with. Obviously, Revery's doing that, and we have folks at Crackle that talking about your originals. We have originals too that we're investing in because we know it's important to have that relationship with the consumer so they come back and stay and look for your content in this really sort of crowded space at the moment.
Great, yeah. Consumer attention is such a commodity that, like fighting for eyeballs, basically. I guess you already answered like the fight with the bigger platforms, how you're fighting originals, basically driving loyalty. But are there any vulnerabilities that media buyers mentioned to you that the bigger platforms have that you can derive revenue from?
I can jump in real quick. I'm on the programmatic side, so there is this piece of our offering that we pay a lot of attention to, and that's transparency. It's important to be transparent, especially today when supply path optimization matters so much to agency holding companies and the brands that they invest for. So we really try to put as much into the stream as possible: device ID, IP, program name, episode name, the TV rating, the duration of the programming, so that everybody has a sense when they're buying as to exactly what they're buying. It includes genre as well. And we work with multiple DMPs. There's multiple mentions this week about contextual, right? And finding the right context and a contextual lens to advertise in. So at Scripps, we're really leaning into that so that we can be best in practice when monetizing against some of the bigger folks that are out there, like NBCU, Disney, and others.
See, it's really interesting, though, because when you look at these electronic program guides, you're starting to see AMC, A&E, Lionsgate enter the space. They're just figuring out their fast strategies. And the problem is a short-form lifestyle brand, short-form content doesn't work on fast because there's just too much high churn. There's a reason why television is long-form. So we only create long-form content and license long-form content. The short-form content is just for socials, right? So that's one thing, is understanding the programming. But you need something that is going to, again, keep that viewer sticky, and that needs to be a piece of comfort food. Why is there a Portlandia rerun channel on Plex? Why is there an Office rerun channel on Peacock? There's a reason for them. You put it on, you leave it on, you know what you're getting, and no matter the demo, there's an attraction to want to view over time. Then what we do is we blend that with our originals, right? So there's always a lean. You know what's funny is like I'd watch Drag Race, obviously, and anytime Drag Race would come on VH1, the movie before was always Mean Girls. And I'm like, why are they always leading in with Mean Girls? I'm like, oh, fuck, I get it. I'm gonna turn this on, I'm gonna leave this on for like a half hour before because it's something that I know and it's funny, right? So that's a big misconception. And the other kind of challenge with this is if we license from folks like Warner Brothers and Lionsgate, but they're starting to rein back the rights with these bigger pieces of legacy of content because they're figuring out their own strategy, and it's a content war that's about to happen in FAST and AVOD. So you really got to be differentiated. Like, are you IGN and you're specific to gaming? Are you Reverie and specific to LGBTQ? I always say the riches are in the niches, and I don't like saying that, that LGBTQ is a niche because we make and we spend $932 billion a year in disposable income in the United States. That's not a friggin' small market. That's a huge market. And internationally, it's like 4.3 trillion, but we don't have data internationally because we're not accepted there. So we're addressing a very large, loyal consumer base, which is growing by population. 1 in 6 millennials identify as LGBTQ, and they are the dominant consumer base on this planet. And guess who's 3 times the population of millennials is Gen Z. And their 52% don't declare gender and do not declare sexual orientation, leaving them somewhere within the community of queer. We like to say that we market from a cultural perspective. It's not about your gender or your sexual orientation. Allies are included in the story. We don't exist without allies. And this is something that I think that all the brands, the buyers, and the brand directors, and I'll be talking about this at the ANA on Thursday in Houston, is that you have to have a strategy that's addressing these minority-based and founded audiences and platforms. If not, you may not exist in the next 5 to 10 years.
I was just going to say that, and I agree with all of those amazing points that both of you just made. I think where we come into play is we're a small independent company amongst a lot of these big Goliaths. And we really specialize in kind of being nimble and flexible where some of the big Goliaths can't or won't or will charge exorbitant fees for a branded integration or something like that. That's where we can actually step in with some good alternatives. And if you think about where we came from, we used to be fully owned by Sony, and then we were bought by Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment. We were merging two very different, diverse brands. Sony was a lot of blockbuster, big action movies, and then Chicken Soup is that feel-good wellness content. And so putting them together and then creating a big streaming platform had its challenges, but also its rewards. And our North Star is kind of the mission of the company, which is changing the world one story at a time. So we are, with our original content, willing to go out on a limb and do a lot of those stories that some of the Goliaths won't do or can't do. And these stories need to be told. And a really good example is Going From Broke, which is that award-winning series we do with Ashton Kutcher and his production company, A+, which we actually own. That allows us to tell the story of crushing student debt or things that are burdening millennials as they're trying to launch themselves into adulthood. And debt is a big factor to that. So we tell that story. We've won multiple awards for doing that, and brands come to us because they actually want to be with that kind of messaging. And I think that's a differentiating point versus some of the Goliaths.
Great, thank you all. How is your revenue mix shifting? What are the biggest revenue streams for each of you? I'd be curious to hear any campaigns.
I'm curious to hear that too.
Sorry?
I'm curious to hear that answer too.
Yeah.
I'll go quick. So for me, it's been a big shift in modalities from direct to programmatic. And I think that that's a big reflection of COVID locking dollars in, especially in the broadcast and the linear networks. And I think as the years have gone on, advertisers are looking for the flexibility that especially PMPs give them and the ability to monitor frequency. The other area that I've seen growing significantly is branded content or branded integrations, and we're doing a lot more of that, not just putting a shoe in a TV series, but looking for ways to increase engagement with innovative ad units or shoppability or custom research studies and Upwave brand lift or all of those different things go into helping to monetize the shifts in what we're seeing in our business model.
Yeah, I'll just quickly go with the description on how we monetize. So we have a direct sales force and a programmatic sales force. What we have seen is a shift into programmatic, but I think it's really a rise in the value of programmatic. CPMs are actually on the upswing in programmatic for CTV, and I think it's because of the proliferation of audience, but also because of the quality that you're able to get within that structure. So oftentimes you're able to mitigate waste. We talked about optimization today. It's very important to optimize for your client and your brands that you're partnering with, and you can do that very much so in the programmatic space. And I also feel like there's a good use of data now in the CTV channel. So you do see deals that are coming about that are programmatic guaranteed. They are layered with first-party, second-party, or third-party data, depending on what's available to you at that deal ID level. And to me, that's a very important thing because it starts to build trust as bigger TV dollars come into the CTV channel. It can be sort of optimized appropriately for the agencies and their brands.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you. I think programmatic is a race to the bottom as it relates to content, especially if you're a niche channel provider. Almost like 95% of everything we do is direct sold, and we blend the fact that we command the most amount of video ad inventory, not even domestically, but globally for the segment, premium ad inventory. On programmatic, we get like $15 to $25 if we're lucky, depending on the quarter. But when I'm selling direct, I make $40 to $60. That's a big difference. And I'm using those dollars to underwrite my long-form content where I'm also owning the IP. Great case use. We have a big client. They're called McDonald's. And we did this show with them called House of Pride that comes out every June. Of course, there's a lot of brands that step in for editorial moments. I don't believe in rainbow washing. I think it's a wonderful thing. Creates jobs, creates, obviously opportunities, but it does matter who you partner with and who owns that platform. And what's unique is I'm only 1/4 owner. The other 3 are 2 women of color, one who's an Army veteran, and my husband, who most of you guys met, who's Hispanic. 75% people of color founded, owned, and operated, and we're National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, the Minority Business Enterprise Supply Chain, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Supply Chain, and ANA AIM certified, meaning we are totally who we say we are, and our ownership is transparent. And brands, and especially brand directors, are making a play to invest specifically in multicultural and diversity and inclusion initiatives. And so we step in and we're like, hey, we could do that for you at scale by direct. And that's how we're winning in the market. Our issue now is that we have so much demand from brands that we need more supply. So we go and we buy audience extension to service some of these brands. We do it through programmatic because it's the cheapest place to do it, right? But at the end of the day, we still have programmatic that fills all that unsold direct inventory. But like it's the big ones who are all competing, the major 5, 6, 7 SSPs in the United States that are filling what remains in that ad pod for that 2-minute break, which isn't necessarily going to be prime time, which, another thing too is programmatic doesn't do day parting. And day parting relates to like, is my best content on Sunday nights between 5 and 9 p.m. or is my best content, Monday mornings between 7 and 10 a.m. because you're more news focused. So there's not enough contextual yet for day parting as it relates to programmatic. All you're doing is looking at yield and optimization to fill that pod and make sure everything is filled. But at the end of the day, that underwriting that we get from McDonald's to make that 52-minute show, and then having the backing of their press and everybody else, their whole team, the PR team behind it, naturally, organically, we did about 5 million impressions in 30 days on that one piece of content. That was year 1. This year, we did over 11 million impressions because we brought in even bigger talent, right? So we are taking the approach that we are a television network that is free to consumer, not in a carriage subscription price. And we're really looking at only long-form content and leveraging the brands who want to step in, and we create that content for them and distribute it at scale to over 57 different endpoints. Well, the other side of this, and I know both of you can appreciate it, is that it's not just about having one channel, it's about having more than one channel, because you take up more space on these electronic program guides, yielding you more return. So we made Reverie Her, which is focused towards queer female voices. We made Reverie Latinx, which is a Spanish language feed in partnership with TV Plus Mexico and Brazil. We did Brazil, and we did global. The more that you can take up space on those electronic program guides and sell Crackle more channels, which I love and we're happening, is better because you have more inventory.
Great.
Thanks for that.
I know I talk a lot.
I think there's good points to be made about direct, and like I made mention, we have a direct sales team that helps right-size what I call balancing our monetization schematics. For us, it's a waterfall. It's IO, it's PG, and then it's going to be PMPs and always-on deals or open market. And that's how we prioritize our monetization strategies, which I think makes a lot of sense for our portfolio and where we sit today. I mean, Scripps is a 143-year-old company, so it's a little bit different than where Reverie sits in terms of your monetization strategies. But for me, I really think that programmatic is bringing quality, and it's bringing trust, and it's bringing guarantee, while it's helping agencies sort of mitigate what they're up against, and that's a margin game right now. There's structures that are in play that agencies are dealing with, and I think ad tech and the best ad tech possible is allowing for them to operate as efficiently as they possibly can, and we're looking to deliver those value propositions where we can.
Great, thank you. So let's go back. Let's go to the free to consumer. Said Damien. Do you see that there's more viewers now that there's an inflation, potential recession from COVID? Like any trending?
Yes, I mean, we're all in home entertainment, so when you're staying home, we naturally see an inflection point. We saw a massive inflection point during COVID with Reverie, and then layer in Black Lives Matter, and we address that community also, because we are part of that community, 2 women of color as founders. We just shot up. We had no idea the return on investment and what we were doing was going to yield where we are today, which right now, we sit at around 4 million monthly active viewers that engage 2 to 3 hours a week with our content, right? That's a lot of inventory. That's a lot of ad pods. That's a lot of opportunity there, right? And again, we're selling between $40 and $60 CPMs.
Great, great. Evie, I know Crackle is also free, so if you want to talk about that.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. We see a lot of fluctuation with the economy. And what we find is that on Crackle, 80% of our audience does not subscribe to cable. But interestingly, 70% of our audience does subscribe to SVOD services. And most people have 1 to 2 SVODs, and then they're overlaying an AVOD on top of that, especially if the content is really good. People are willing to sit through a few commercials for good content. Yeah. But when the economy tightens and household budgets tighten, SVOD is one of the first things to go. So it behooves us to keep putting out really great content so that when they do find us through discoverability, they stay with us. And that goes to not just the content, but also the tech stack and the advertising experience. So it's all kind of folded together, but it absolutely is a reflection of the economy.
Yeah, we're AVOD, so we had a really nice run with our programming in the pandemic. Newsy's a nonpartisan news net that did really well as folks were looking to seek out information. We have court TV, which has been a rocket ship just because of the amount of court cases that are going through our system at the moment, whether it's through political unrest or Hollywood drama like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. So that served well. Thank you to both of them. And then, we do have Bounce TV, which is an African-American entertainment network, and that also has been a rocket ship for us just because of the amount of folks that are looking to relate with the African-American household. And we have support through that, through the Trumpet Awards, which is owned by Bounce and Scripps, where folks can celebrate Black achievement and really brands can get behind, investing in that demographic. So, we're really trying to grow our portfolio based on originals, as I made mention, and having a really great experience both through the glass on wall as well as tentpole events around our brands.
Great, great. I see Steve walking around, so I think it's time for a Q&A. No? Okay, good. Can you each say your biggest lesson learned from the last 6 months or even the last year? Any advice, I guess, for other platforms out there?
Oh my God. Well, I'm raising capital right now, so that's the biggest pain point that I have, being independent, and we're venture-backed and angel-backed. If there's anyone who's looking for investment or does investment or M&A, come find me. We'll teach you everything about FAST. We've been in FAST and AVOD since 2017, before anyone else was. So we're kind of like between Aaliyah, LaShawn, and Chris and I, the founders of Reverie, like gray hairs already in the space, or at least I'm getting a whole more bunch of gray hairs than I ever had before in my life from running this business. But we have about 30 employees, and we're scaling up to about 50 by the time we get to this time next year. And the reason being is because, again, there's so much demand. Our issue is evangelizing this to the major holding companies and then getting on their radars when they're doing their year buy and saying, hey, we're Reverie, give us a line item. And we're basically taking up and owning that space for CTV and OTT as it relates to LGBTQ, because we have 0 competitors in the space, which is wonderful. We're owning this lane. I think that is definitely, and I could talk about investment, and that's not part of this crowd, but come find me afterwards, and I'll give you my 2 cents. If you are a startup, it's a pain in the ass, but you do what you got to do to get to the exit, right?
Yeah, so on our side, I think what I've learned, or, for me personally, is as I get through the CTV space and understand it as much as I possibly can, is understanding intent in the consumer, right? It's really about who's coming to watch your brands, who you're relating with, and understanding what kind of content they're looking for. I think that's very important that, Scripps continues to endeavor towards that goal. And, I think we're also in a place where we're trying to understand our audience more and more. So first-party data strategies and having that rigor that was spoken to yesterday and today is very important and something I think we'll continue to learn through and hopefully expose more opportunities for advertisers and our consumers.
And I think for us, for Crackle, the really big lesson is not being afraid to evolve. You may know we purchased Redbox a few months ago, which was a really interesting acquisition. And most people think about Redbox as the kiosks, which is actually still a very big business. There are 36,000 kiosks around the country. And in 2021, I think the revenue was like $592 million of DVD rentals. It's still massive. But they also have an AVOD platform and fast channels. And then something I'm really excited about is over 40 million loyalty members. That is a ton of data that's now going to come to us. So when we purchased it, it was a little bit of how are we going to make this fit into what we already do? And then, you start ideating and we think about maybe we could put content on those, our content, original content on those kiosks. Maybe we could create branded entertainment with a CPG and do a sort of a dinner and a movie if you're going to a grocery store. And so the ideas are coming fast and furious, and it's something that we're evolving into. And again, as we look for more places to distribute our content and increase discoverability and then monetize it, that offers us a really unique opportunity to do so.
Okay, thanks. We'll take some questions.
Yeah, we have time for questions.
Okay,
That was a lot. That was a
I was
lot of
gonna ask
information.
another question
I
then?
want to draft off Michael's point about first-party data and ask this of all of you because you're dealing with platforms that I'm guessing are not too forthcoming about sharing what their subscriber data is, and subscriber identity. So I'm curious about what your first-party data strategy is in terms of getting that personal one-to-one relationship with your viewers.
You got it, I'll buy it. Let's talk data.
Go.
Yeah, this is a pain in the ass. And you'll hear this from tons of fast channel publishers like Reverie, because what Samsung decides to disseminate to us versus Vizio versus Zumo versus LG versus any of the channel partners is their own dashboards. And they're all worried about cannibalizing themselves and sharing too much of that info because we're agnostic. We're on everything. We're on 60 different fast aggregators between here and China. And so the biggest thing is we have to hire someone, basically a data coordinator, full-time. We have multiple now who are logging into these dashboards and trying to make sense. The other way is you can get smart around it. It's your play out, right? And see how many CDN hits you have and try to compare that to the data that you're getting from the dashboard. And then the other side of it is we stopped spending our money on social, still do SEO, because of all the hate speech and the algorithm shutting down like two guys kissing or two women holding hands on Facebook. We didn't find it lucrative, and we started pouring our ad dollars into the platforms that we exist in, Samsung and Vizio specifically. So that's where we spend all of our monthly and quarterly marketing budgets. We see a return, but we also get data now as being on the managed service side from as a client now, as an advertising client. So we're trying to match all these items together to better understand programming and also how we can super serve our advertisers like McDonald's, who's increased their ARR this year with us by 48% year over year. They just keep coming back. And so I think that is an issue that's an industry standard issue that is not going to get solved. It's going to have to go to a legislation level, I believe, until the FCC stands in to what fast and AVOD data can look like and creates kind of law and policy around it. But I'm too small to do that. I'm just one dude, right? Until I get bought by Scripps or Crackle, and you have more power.
So the investment's sitting right next to you,
Michael,
right?
you raised the issue
The
of
investment's
first-party
sitting.
data. Michael, you raised the issue of first-party data. So what's the strategy?
Yeah, well, FAST certainly does present challenges. When you rely on FAST, it presents challenges to first-party data. But the LGs and Samsungs and Plutos of the world are very important to distribution and scale, which is key to scaling buys. So ultimately, I think we also, as I made mention, have an app strategy. And with the app strategy, you're able to source first-party data. And Scripps also owns and operates 60-plus TV stations across the country. And through those gateways, we also have some first-party. Now, ultimately what we're looking to do is work with partners to help us build out that first party and get into some lookalike modeling, which was talked about yesterday, that'll assist you in sort of bringing more value to your offerings around the TV channel. And then ultimately, Scripps has a keen eye on the over-the-air, sector for what is now being talked about is data-driven linear, right? And the last mile that the Vizios and Samsungs have in terms of, of getting linear to be data-driven and targeted to mitigate waste there as well. So it's a huge landscape. I don't have a panacea for it at the moment, but for us, it's about harvesting as much as possible from our partners, utilizing our app strategy, and then using our owned and operated assets to get a breadth of lookalike where we can.
There is one product, really quickly, that Nielsen's already kind of standardizing with all the agencies called DAR, Digital Ad Ratings, and they're focused more on the FAST and CTV side, right? And they have a suite of products that will be coming out, I think they're announcing at CES, specifically around the measurement, because the other thing, too, is that the misconception between a view and an impression, even though we're IAB certified, is that we're watching this one screen and there's a multiple of that audience.
The co-viewing is not picked up by DAR.
Is not yet picked up. Nielsen's the only one that can possibly do that. So there's a multiple of that, making that CPM even more valuable to resell at a bigger premium.
Evie, is Redbox sort of one of your key first-party data play for you? Or are you
it's
doing
the
other
one
things?
with the most scale, absolutely, and that's why I'm so thrilled that it's coming to us, because that is, 40 million loyalty members. That's a lot of data that we haven't had. The other ways that we've garnered it, and I will agree with both of them, but we also have newsletters. We have, a rewards program where we're trying to get user input. They're not large scale, but
Is there a lot of overlap between Redbox users and Crackle?
Well, there likely is, because if you think about it, these are people who like great originals, movies, TV series. Right. So it fits well into the portfolio. And as I said, there were, I think, $592 million of DVD rentals in 2021. So there is still a big market.
Who the hell is renting DVDs? I'm sorry. When I'm thinking about
62 million people.
Who's discovering an over-the-top
This is a
million
streaming panel.
versus the DVD buyers. I'm thinking my 80-year-old stepfather is still subscribing to Netflix discs, I think.
It's about monetization, but they also have, as I said, an AVOD and fast channels. But I bring up the kiosks because of the opportunity to tie everything together.
Yep.
And again, monetizing it in this way.
I'm just kidding. You're gonna get to talk to the panel now, because we're gonna break for coffee, and we can find out who the hell really is renting DVDs anymore. Barbie, guys, thank you so much. That was very energetic.